To be honest, when you create a little workflow in ComfyUI, when you know it's your own GPU, when you know it's your own prompt, maybe your own LoRa model or like your own personalization, and it's not like when you generate with Midjourney from another services, you feel like it's almost yours, and it's something that everybody can feel good about.
Welcome to a new episode of XR and AI Spotlight, the show that gives the stage to the founders and makers pushing the boundaries of XR and AI. My name is Gabriele Romagnoli, I'm your host, and I'm here today with Lovis Odin. Lovis is a French interactive designer specializing in 3D, XR, and motion. With the advent of AI, he started digging into tools and workflows to accelerate and augment the work of creatives. And today, he will share with us how ComfyUI has become one of the primary weapons in his toolset. ComfyUI, let's be honest, can feel quite intimidating, but I left this conversation knowing so much more and ready to dive in. We will talk about how to get started with ComfyUI.
The advantage of ComfyUI is you can run it on your own computer. They make it very easy now to install it. So it's in one click. You can download the application, you can launch it, and it will work on your computer. So now they make it available that you can have templates that will allow you to have simple workflow to generate image or video. So you can just click on them. They will make it very easy to download the model for you.
What are the hardware requirements for various applications and alternatives if your rig is not up to the task?
For image, you can use the NVIDIA 2060, and if you want to go to video, you will need at least 4090. You have many services online that allow to rent GPU for a very low cost, like that is super low cost and super easy to use, or you have also.
His professional experiences were working with brands.
The first big project that I probably did with ComfyUI was for Coca-Cola. And so we decided to use ComfyUI and to combine it with like 3D renders that we were making, but someone that draw character for us. And I think at the time, 50% of the work was still manual. But now more we're going through new projects, and more now I would say like we can achieve like a full animation as we did for Coca now with like maybe 10% of manual work and 90% of automatic work. Now when I work with clients, there is some clients when we create some stuff, they will say that they use AI. But a lot of clients now that I work for movie, for video game, they don't say they use AI.
And loads of additional resources and platforms to help AI artists in their professional journey.
If people want to discover more also about what the possibilities, you have a server on Discord that called and it's maybe the best AI artist in the world that use ComfyUI. So I'm working with. The goal of that was like, we have like many AI artists. We have many people that want AI artists to work for commercial, to work for video clip. But the link between them is like pretty hard to make. So Kartel AI finally is just to make in relation clients and AI artists.
But before we get into it, I wanted to thank our sponsor Meshi, who made this episode possible. Meshi is a real powerhouse for generating 3D assets with AI. You can start with a simple text or image prompt and get high-quality stylized 3D models in just a minute. There are two features that completely blew my mind. One is the ability to create stylized texture for any mesh, with or without UV. And the other is the ability to edit portions of AI-generated textures like in Midjourney in Painting. The team has been pushing continuous updates, improving significantly the geometry and texture quality, and I strongly encourage you to visit meshi.ai and check out the generous free plan. After that, make sure to use the code XRAI20 to get a 20% discount on your subscription. And now it's time to roll the title and welcome Lovis under the spotlight. I'm very excited because for some, ComfyUI is seen as, let's say, not necessarily accessible but still everybody recognizes that it's super powerful. So this is one of the things that we will try to unpack today. And I want to ask with, let's say, the most basic question. And that is like, what are the advantages on ComfyUI when you compare it to off-the-shelf AI tools?
Yeah, so ComfyUI is a nodal-based system that allows to do Gen AI. But what is the most important on this tool compared to other tools is open source. So it's fully open source. So you can use all the model of image or video or everything that is available open source. You can use it inside ComfyUI. So I would say it's like much more flexible maybe than other tool. It's a bit more complex to take into end, but it's also it allows you to have much more control. And also, why not to not use it only as a as a tool to create visual, but it can be also used as automation, maybe so it can be used also as a backend. So it's very important, I think, this, because when you use a tool like Kling AI, like Runway, like everything, you can prompt and you can generate a video from it, or like an image with Midjourney, but you can't really have control, and you don't use open source. It costs you money. The advantage of ComfyUI is you can run it on your own computer, and that I think it's really important today, that you can run in any computer almost. ComfyUI, it's very optimized even for Mac now, for PC. So you can try it, and yes, you will be very happy because it's using your own GPU. So the only cost is your electricity, if I can say, when you use ComfyUI compared to other tool.
So you touch in a few things, right? One being, of course, the fact that it's open source, right? So you don't need to rely on maybe also sharing some of these data or generation that have used to train the models as well, right? And then you mentioned also about the control aspect, right? That is another important thing, and the automation. I think those are very key things that we're gonna discuss, but the point is still setup first, right? So when you think about setup, what is the simplest setup that you can get of ComfyUI right now to get started?
Yeah, for sure. So the simply way to do it is you can just go on Google and write ComfyUI, and you will find their GitHub. So you will have a GitHub page of Comfy Anonymous. And GitHub can be a bit like, sometimes for people that are not developers, can be intimidating, but it's very easy because they allow to download a package that will be like an application that can work for Mac or for PC, and so you can just download it and launch it, and it will work on your computer. So now they ComfyUI, since a few weeks, the community of ComfyUI, ComfyUI organization, they make it very easy now to install it. So it's in one click. You can download the application, you can launch it, and it will work on your computer. So after, for sure, ComfyUI can go deeper, but if you want to install it and to test it right now, you can just go on their GitHub and download it. And yes, it should be very easy to install, to be honest, like any other application right now.
Okay, so then what are the requirements in terms of hardware? Because I've also heard that with Mac, it can be trickier, but of course you mentioned also about graphic card. And maybe is there a bit like a game in a way where there is a minimum or recommended requirements? Because I can imagine that it also depends very heavily on what you're trying to do, right?
Totally. It's exactly what you're saying. So if you use a Mac, for example, if you have like some hardware that use like M2 or like M3, it can be very good for that. M1 for Mac, it can be a bit too low. When you use a Mac to generate content with ComfyUI, it will be very good to generate image. But if you want to generate video, it will be probably more demanding. So you will need to have more power. That's why most of the time people, when they use ComfyUI, they don't use a Mac, but they use PC, because you have NVIDIA GPU that are not available on Mac anymore. But what is so good with NVIDIA is you can really have optimized generation, and you can also generate video. If you use NVIDIA GPU, you can start with a very low graphic card at the 2060, NVIDIA RTX 2060. But the best, to be honest, now what people work on when they work locally with ComfyUI, because we can speak also that you can use in another way, but locally it's good to have at least 260, but I would say 4090. It's what people use the most.
But you gave me But you gave me right now a huge spectrum right now.
No,
right?
for sure.
So
I would say for image. For image, you can use the NVIDIA 2060. And if you want to go to video, for example, generation with AnimateD for other model video, you will need at least 4090. So it really depends if you want to generate only image or video.
Perfect.
Mostly.
So let's imagine that maybe I have, let's say, a 3080 or a 3070, right? Something that is somehow in between. Does that mean that the video will take longer to generate, or just the quality is impacted? What is the trade-off in having some middle ground GPU?
So mostly it will be the time. It could be possible to render, but it will take a lot of more time. And also, we can discuss more about that. But in ComfyUI, that depends how complex is your workflow. So I can just explain quickly ComfyUI about that, but like you can have like different nodes that you connect to each other and that will give you a result. So you have input and output. And so if your workflow is little, so for example, if you just say, okay, I have a prompt, I give it to a generator of image and I want the image to be my result, that will be working on almost every computer. But if we implement, for example, more control where you say like, I want to change just the background right now, and after I want to change the character, and after I want to process that to transform it into a video. That you can do fully in ComfyUI, but the workflow will be bigger, so you will need probably more GPU. To be honest, now, when we create little workflow, and when it's for testing, when you want to discover ComfyUI, in local is totally, for any computer, you can test it. And so it's already, I think, the best. If you want to go further, you have many services online that allow to rent GPU for a very low cost. I can give example like Google Colab that is super low cost and super easy to use, or RunPod. You have also Vast AI. All these companies, like when you want to go deeper with ComfyUI and when you want to if you don't have a super powerful computer, you can build more workflow and like a bigger one using these services. And it costs between like 20 cents per hour to $1 per hour. So it's okay. And if you work still on your computer and you try to understand ComfyUI, and when you want to go bigger and like create more stuff, you can jump to renting a GPU, for example.
So you mentioned image, video. Where do we stand when it's about creating 3D, for example? Is that on the video side? Is that in between? Where are we?
It's very demanding also, like everything. So generating image you can now do it like with very low resource. You don't need to have a crazy computer. But when you generate 3D, when you generate video, for me, it's a bit the same. You need like higher GPU anyway. But now, to be honest, it's very interesting because in 3D, it's a bit different because generating 3D with ComfyUI is still like very new. So you have a few models. But for example, generating video is super interesting because you have a lot of different models that are optimized in different way. And so you have model, for example, that can model videos that can work on a little GPU, and you have other models that are the same but like with higher quality that can work on higher. So after it's really like you can choose what is the best for you, and it's very easy to find the different model available for ComfyUI. So yeah, that really depends of your. But now everything you can use everything. You will just lose a bit quality or time sometimes. Yeah.
So let's imagine I have just downloaded this app that apparently is as easy as clicking install. I have it, my computer, I know that is capable. And now I want to start maybe with a video generation, right? And maybe an image generation, right? So how do I get a model into my ComfyUI setup, like high level? And I think let's look at this a bit general, right? So we talk about 3D, and that's the power of ComfyUI. So high level, how does that conceptually work to add this model and pieces to this puzzle that goes and create this more complicated workflow?
Yeah, it's super interesting that you asked me that, Evan, because I think first I want to say that ComfyUI did recently very nice update. So when you open ComfyUI for the first time, you will have you can choose template. So now they make it available that you can have templates that will allow you to have simple workflow to generate image or video. So you can just click on them and they will make it very easy to download the model for you. Why I'm speaking about that? Because yes, ComfyUI is a main box. And inside this main box, you can download model, LoRa, upscaler. What is good is ComfyUI is installed on your computer, so on your machine. So when you download the model, you can just download it online and copy, paste to your model folder, and it will be inside ComfyUI. But what is good is sometimes, as I say, like for simple workflow when you're starting, you don't need, because you will have template available. You can just click on it and it can download the model for you automatically. So now that's very interesting. But finally, it's not that complex. You will see that the ComfyUI installation is very simple. So when you have it on your computer, you will have a folder that called models, and inside you have everything. And after you can download the model on Hugging Face or like everywhere. So it's very easy after to just use any model you want. You need some space on your hard drive, and very important also, because model, they can be very heavy.
So give me an example. How much space, depending on the model? Just drop some numbers.
Yeah, Flux, for example. So Flux, I would say, is the model the most famous now to generate image, as it's open source, like for non-commercial projects. And I will say that the minimum model is 10 gigabytes. So that's the model that is like restricts, I will say, to like if you have a GPU that is not so powerful. So we call it models that can be called GUF. So GGUF. So Flux GUF or Flux FP8. I'm sorry, I'm using technical term, but this model are lower in size, but also they don't need so much powerful GPU. But the original model of Flux is 22, 25 gigabytes, but it's still like reasonable, and you can use it even like, so after, normally, even the models that are lower are still very good quality, I don't say, but like, it's just you will gain some speedness sometimes. So I really advise to use model first that are like 10 gigabytes for Flux is a good start here. And model video for sure afterward, model video can be much higher, much heavier, sorry.
But the order of magnitude kind of like makes sense, let's say, right? So it's not like completely prohibitive in a way to get started. If it was 500 gigabytes, then it's like, oof, maybe
for
I
sure.
need to get some space.
For sure. But sometimes you need to download. So when you will see a workflow, so it's very interesting because you have the model, but also you have like other little model to use, like for example, a decoder, etc. It seems complex, like it seems a lot of work, but it's very easy. But you need to download sometimes not just one model, but different model for each workflow. So you have different model for different use case. So for example, what is super cool in ComfyUI is you can do segmentation. So you can like delete the background, replace it by another one. All these ask little models that can be bigger. So sometimes installation of ComfyUI at the end, when you work like on it like full day, like for a few years, it can be like 500 gigabytes, 600 gigabytes at the end when you have all the model installed. So yeah.
So I think one of the words that we have used the most was probably workflows. And the point about this is also that I think one of the most inconvenient things that I think we have to deal with when creating is the fact that all this happens in one tool, in another tool, and especially with off the shelf, it gets even more complicated. And that's one of the things that I think Adobe is kind of like doing, because of course they have their own suites, right? So those features are already in. When we think about ComfyUI, right, let's imagine a workflow where I generate an image, then maybe I want to create a 3D model out of it, for example. Now, are there ways, how does that talk with other tools that could be Photoshop or that could be Blender, for example? Does it at all?
It's very interesting that you say that, that you speak about Photoshop and Blender and how to combine it maybe with ComfyUI. For example, for Blender, you have already like add-on for Blender that can use ComfyUI inside Blender. So it's very interesting. So you can have like already like tools that allow you for Blender, for example, to generate texture automatically for your 3D model. But most of the time, in ComfyUI, you don't use this tool. You use like libraries that are like mostly open source, or you can also call API of services online. But mostly the modification will be a bit different than to work with this software as Photoshop, as After Effects, because you will work as a system of nodes. So it's a bit like what you can see in Unreal or like the system of blueprints. So you will start from a base, so for example, from an image or from just a prompt. And from this, you will go step by step to change your image, to make it how you want, to make it evaluate. And this workflow, what is cool, is like something you can redo. So when you have something that's working good for an image, you can retry it and change some parameter and redo it for another image, and it will do this full modification for you in one time. But for now, I will say that how we use it, and I'm using Photoshop as well when I'm working in ComfyUI, for example, it will be more to create something in ComfyUI, and when if you have little modification to do or final editing, you can use like tool after that everybody know. But the ball, yeah.
But so let me get my head around it. So let's imagine I want a landscape. Let's go for a simpler example like a video, right? Maybe I generate an image of a landscape, right? And maybe I want to change that landscape in a way that is not necessarily node dependent. I mean, for example, let's imagine I want maybe a bit more trees in that specific positions, or maybe I want to change the color grading. Does that mean that I need to export the image and then get it back into ComfyUI, or how does the workflow goes at that point?
Yeah, it's very interesting because in ComfyUI, you have like a lot of editing possibilities that are already available, for example, in Photoshop. So you have like possibility to totally like change your image, rotate it, change the color, change the contrast, change the light. You can do all that already with Node inside ComfyUI. So you can really never leave the tool. It's what is super. It's just, I would say, like for new people that come that sure to edit the contrast or exposure, as you need to import a node, like to change the good value, it's maybe not as easy as first. But at the end, if you want to do more and if you want to do this modification to multiple contents, it's very easy. And so in ComfyUI, it's not only Gen AI visuals that you can do. You can really do the full edit step. You can add caption to your video, to your image. You can change the color, make some backgrounds. So you can really do the full process of editing almost in ComfyUI.
Now, please, Lovis, don't get me wrong, right? But then for who is ComfyUI? Because I don't know, sometimes I feel like that the creative process, it's something that is kind of like, has an embodied aspect, right? It's a bit like drawing. It's a bit like thinking openly and less technically in a way. So
For sure.
For who is ComfyUI at this point?
So me, I'm using it, and now I'm talking about it. I'm talking it in a technical way. So for sure, like I'm imagining that can be used as a product to generate like 1,000 images if you want. But how people using it, and it's very interesting. You have a lot of AI artists that use it to give inspiration to their work. And again, what ComfyUI is super powerful is you can really get control. So for example, if you're drawing something, or if you have like some paintings that you did, or like, I don't know, you can really use this inside your workflow to make something new from it. I always want to say that ComfyUI is not a black box as when you use Runway or Midjourney, you just have a prompt and you have a result. Here you can really like, even if it's technical a bit, but you can really do what you have in your mind, and you can combine with already what you create before as image, as video, and you can put that in your workflow to have new ideas. It's not a finality to use ComfyUI. I think it's like when you use ChatGPT, it's a bit the same. It's for everyone. It's just to give you either inspiration for new content, either to create full content in AI, or to create automation. But it's a tool that allow you to be also more creative, and not only to rely on Gen AI, to have like more control.
So you have experience in XR, right, and motion overall, right? So I was also curious to learn a bit, what are some of the projects that you have done within ComfyUI, right? And maybe it could be indeed video, let's say 2D video, but I'm curious also if you introduce some aspect of those 3D workflows that maybe relies on indeed something that is instead like a 3D set, for example, that's been created in Blender or Unreal or any other tool.
Yeah, no, totally. It's very interesting you say that. So the first big project that I probably did with ComfyUI was for Coca-Cola with the company that called Dog Studio. That is an agency. It was like 1.5 years ago. And so we decided to use ComfyUI and to combine it with like 3D renders that we are making, but also with like someone that draw character for us. We use ComfyUI on this animation video that you can see probably when I'm speaking right now. But we use this tool really like to, for example, when you do a 3D render, it can be very long to have the good lighting, to have the good like looking of everything, can be like very demanding in time. Here, what you can do is a simple, for example, box, and you can really transform it with AI to make it look how you want. And so you can go much faster in rendering scene. So how we work for Coca-Cola, I just want to say it was really interesting because it was the first big project, I think, with ComfyUI, and it was very new. But we really work as a normal studio. So we work with like animator. I think it's very important to say that you can work with animator with AI, it's not like one or the other, So we work with animator 3D and 2D that creates simple animation for us. And we use ComfyUI to transform this animation to make it look a bit better, to make it look more in the style we want. And also maybe to help with some frame, interpolation frame or stuff like that. So, and we really work like each part of the movie. So it was really interesting that we work first the character, after we work the different elements that will be in foreground, and we work the background separately. So after we had the work of compositing as well. But what was cool with ComfyUI on that is really that we could like create our own style and duplicate it all over for different scenes, and have a process a bit faster than if we didn't have that. But I think it's really important that I was liking this project that we really work with not AI people, but with real creator of content, motion designer, a 3D designer, and we just use AI to just make it a bit together at the end. Yeah.
I just wanted to have a quick break to remind you that if you're enjoying this conversation, you should definitely check out the XR AI Spotlight newsletter. By subscribing, you will get weekly interviews like this one directly in your inbox. an app or product I personally have tested and recommend, and access to a list of over 400 mixed reality apps for Quest that you can easily search and filter. Just check the first link in the show description. And now, let's get back to the show.
Love it. So can you break us down a little bit? So what was the work that was done by the 2D or the animators, and what was the work done by AI? Because you mentioned that we used it to refine, but maybe you can be a bit more specific. Who created the maybe the mood board, or who created the 3D model, who rigged, and what about camera movement and all that?
Yeah, no, it's like it can go deep for that. So when we start this project, first we start the storyboard. What is super cool with AI is you can go super fast in storyboard and proposing ID and style. So we generate like the storyboard, but also the mood board using only AI. From that, when we validate a style, we work with animator, mostly 2D to be honest. So it was mostly 2D animation. So when we have each scene from our storyboard, we ask to an animator to draw each animation for each character. But we didn't need it to draw it like fully. So we just needed like to draw it quickly in black line. So we could like just draw it, and it didn't have to draw all the frame. So they draw like maybe like half or like 1/3 of all the frame we are needing. Yeah, exactly. And there is a lot of new workflow like that maybe you will see recently, but where you can use like create like a first frame and a last frame, and finally you let AI imagine in between. And I think that's the most powerful use of AI and the most control we can have right now. It's really like first frame, last frame. And so if you create this first frame and this last frame after the interpolation, you can just use with AI. But yeah, and I would say that all the camera control and everything was created like, yeah, in 2D or in 3D with software that we all know. And AI, and you will see in the video probably, but it was really the path to combine it all together, to make it the good light, to make it the good texture, to make it, because we wanted also a look a bit claymation, a bit claymation. So this AI really helped for that. So if we had to make, so finally we made this character fully in 2D, but they were looking a bit 3D at the end. That's what is cool. And for the 3D element, we just, when I say we work with 3D, it was just to create like some, for example, we were needing like a can of Coke or stuff like that. So we just add some 3D elements to this composition. But yes, AI was really used as well, like to combine everything and to make it look good together. So all the steps that normally have to be like in animation, when you have to paint everything, to draw everything, to do each frame, or like in 3D when you have to do like all the render, all the lighting, that we made it with AI. So that was, I think, very interesting for this project. But that's just one example, of projects. If you want, I can give you. I can.
Of course, and just for me to understand. So does that mean that you haven't opened Blender, Unreal, or Unity for that? That everything happened either within ComfyUI or by the artist?
Yes. But we use like Blender before. So if we use Blender or animation or anything, it was used before. We give to AI, AI transform. And after even, like I want to say, after when we finished to generate the scene with AI, so when it was looking good, claymation style how we wanted, we still did retouch on it. Because it was 1 year ago, 1 year and a half. And I think at the time, 50% of the work was still manual. But now more we're going through new projects, and more now I would say like we can achieve like a full animation as we did for Coca now with like maybe 10% of manual work and 90% of automatic work. It's evaluating so quick that even what I did like 1 year and a half ago, now it would be totally different workflow. So yeah.
This would deserve the speed at which this evolved would deserve an entire episodes, if not more. But I do have another question that instead has to do with how did you find that project? How do you become part of it? Because I can imagine, right, that there might be other people that are interested, maybe want to apply the skills, and maybe they have already learned more than the basics, right? So how do you get to use AI for commercial projects? How did you do it? And maybe what advice could you give to people that are trying to do the same?
It's very interesting that you asked me that. I think now if you need to create image, if you have any work that is linked to marketing, to video, anything, that at one point you need to create an image or a video or content that are visual, AI can also help you. It's not here to replace you, but you can use it to help you for your creation and to go faster. So I would say to people that if they have any project with their agency or anything that is, for example, related to, I don't know, a company asks to them, they have to erase the background of 100 different images, and it can be very long. That is something that ComfyUI can do very quick. So what I advise to people is like, to speak with their company when they have project, but like to try to introduce it slowly, to try to like propose idea with it, because I promise you that when you discover it and when you see the power of it, anything that you do as a creator, when you create image or content for marketing or like for anything, you will see that there is a use case for it. And so that I want to say also, like to shout out to Henri Dobrez, with who I work in Dog Studio. So it was the boss of Dog Studio, and he was really believing in AI. So also when I was working on stuff, he was really trusting in what I could do, because we have good discussion. And also I was taking a lot on my personal time to show that AI can be used also for this marketing project. To give you one example, I can't say for which brand it was, but it was for a famous brand of phones. And it was a client that came to the agency and said, like, okay, we have 5,000 images with this phone, and we want to change this phone by another model, by a new model of phone, but we want to keep the same image. So normally this work should have been done by like people, like it was like a budget for 3 weeks, 1 month, like 6 people working full time on it. And finally, when I heard this project, I was like, oh, if I have to do always the same process to each image, it's something that I can probably like do automation with ComfyUI. So I create a workflow that is a bit complex, but you will probably see like in the document I share. But that allow like from a single image to focus on the phone that you want automatically, the phone that you want to replace. It's using a model that I train on image of the new phone, and it will replace with the new phone automatically. So what was super interesting is this work on this 5,000 images that should take 1 month. It take finally like 1 week, 2 weeks, the time of the creation of the workflow, and it allow to help. But that's not the only use case. That's more when you want to create automation, but it can be also when you heard about, like, I don't know, you want to make a commercial video and your client have a budget of like, I don't know, he has 2 days to give you as work and you have no time at all. AI can also help, because you can maybe generate image with ComfyUI to make it like super good for a product, for example. And after you can use video to AI model video to transform this image into animation. So finally, maybe something that will cost and like take a lot of time to do before, when it was full 3D or full animation, now you can do it very fastly and prototype quickly. I think sometimes it's not the final result, but there is a big differences of like prototype team and showing stuff quickly with AI.
So some of the examples that you have shared right now, right, revolve around an individual working in an agency, for example. And the majority of the examples you made have to do with marketing. So it could be a commercial, could be a social media post, it could be some assets for the websites, right? These are examples, right?
Totally.
Now, if this is great. And I think the advice, of course, of getting people to start using it and experiment and learn how it can be used within the project, this is, I think, a very, very incredible, a great first step. Now, for people that maybe they're not that lucky, right? So let's imagine that maybe they're not working in an agency, or maybe they don't get the right project, right? But they would like to have maybe freelance options on the side. How would you approach that? And by the way, I'm not sure that there is an answer for this, right? It's maybe like open-ended question.
No, but it's super like first, like 90% of the people that I meet that use ComfyUI every day, they are people that have other job, that don't use it ComfyUI almost in their job. So that's pretty crazy. Most of the people that develop the most craziest stuff in ComfyUI are people that are taking on their personal time, because they love that and they think there is so much valuable. So what I would advise to people, it's really to do it first, like as you say, personally for you, because to be honest, when you create a little workflow in ComfyUI, when you know it's your own GPU, when you know it's your own prompt, maybe your own LoRa model, or like your own personalization, and when you generate an image from that, from your own workflow, it's not like when you generate with Midjourney from another services. You feel like it's almost yours, you know, and it's something that everybody can feel good about it. And I think how I can say. To have this control, but also that you can import a drawing, that you can import like whatever you want, it gives you a lot of like possibilities, and it's probably stuff that you could never have done if you didn't know AI. So it allows more possibility creatively, I think, for people. And I will advise if people want to discover more also about what the possibilities, because I think it's super important to see what the possibilities of AI, Gen AI. You have a server on Discord that called Banadoko. I will give you the link, Banadoko. And it's maybe the best AI artists in the world that use ComfyUI. They are on this Discord and they're really sharing all the time what they're creating. So all the visuals that they're creating for like, to be honest, I see for every kind of, so I see people working for video game, people working for totally art generation. You have a lot of like, not only for marketing, it can be for a lot of different purpose. So I love Banandoko. And also on this, what is super cool, and in this community, is people sharing a lot. So as we are talking about workflow, what is super cool is online, but also me, I'm sharing a lot of workflow online and people can just download it and reuse it or understand them and try to modify it to adapt to what they want. Is what is super cool in ComfyUI is like the community is pretty big and people are very invested. So you can find so many resources quickly and you can test very complex stuff very quickly as workflow are available a bit everywhere in Banadoko server, but also online on different websites.
And from the moment that, let's say, you are aware, then proficient, then maybe being able to run and create some of this project, the next step would be to start publishing it online, sharing it on social media. And is that how you get project? Do you get, like, for example, involved in this community, maybe start collaborating with others? I mean, what's the dynamic of turning this learning process into something that could actually be a side gig?
Totally. No, I think now people are so interested by this. We miss people doing more Gen AI. We think that there is enough, but I can promise you that I have to say no to a lot of work. And so we have so much possibilities. And I think if you do any workflow, like, and it's what I like to do, me, sometimes I'm just creating workflow of what I think would be cool and what I like to do. Because if I do something that I like to do, and if I share on social media, even if I'm not big, sometimes on Twitter, I remember 1 year ago, I was only 200 followers or like 150. And now I'm almost 5,000 in 1 year. And I just published stuff that I was liking to do. And what is cool when you publish stuff you like to do, finally client or people, or they contact you for that and they say, oh, I would be interested by that. And you like to do it. So you're like, oh, perfect. That's the best. So I really advise people to share what they like to do, whatever it is. But it will interest some people, and more you do, more it's interesting. And I think there is not enough people also sharing what they're really doing. Even if it's like something super simple, it's already so impressive for people, and it's impressive to generate an image that you have so much control and that you are happy with, and to say that I generated, it's not another tool, it's me that I create this workflow, I can share to you. That's very valuable, I think, on social media.
And so we start moving a bit the conversation into, let's say, the community around ComfyUI, right? And the community of artists around Gen AI. And I know that you're also involved in Kartel AI, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I'm working with Kartel AI since now, like, we create this company, if we can say, like 4 months ago with Luc Peterson and the team of Digital Things in Los Angeles. And so the goal of that was like, we have like many AI artists. We have many people that want AI artists to work for commercial, to work for video clip, for movie, for whatever. But the link between them is like pretty hard to make because people don't know how to contact and people don't have the technical knowledge sometimes. So Kartel AI finally is just to make in relation clients and AI artists. So if you are an AI artist in the future, or even if you learn ComfyUI right now and in 6 months you're like advanced or like not even, but just if you can go on the website, subscribe, and you can have your profile and clients will contact you if they see your profile. And it's like a freelance base, but really based on AI. It's just to have like more job and to connect good client with a good AI creator.
So do you do any filtering in a sense of, for example, of the clients or maybe the artists that are part of this?
Sure.
How does that work?
No, for sure. Like for AI artists, so when they connect to the website, they can send their creations, they can send their price, what they're doing. And after we do a selection of people that also like, we need people that are pretty advanced, but also we make in category. Like what is super interesting in AI is people doing so much different stuff. So even like this new kind of work. So everybody have like different tags linked to what they're doing. And we really select these people. So everybody can subscribe, but after we select. And for clients, it's really also like clients that it's not like little clients like that would be annoying, or like we really make like something very clear where clients pay before. They say clearly their projects, their brief, the AI artist can work with them or not. It's really a choice after. So we really have big control and we try to work with big clients in the industry. So that's why it can be interesting,
So There is right now so much content being produced, right? Because indeed, I think even if we don't consider AI, right, the content is just increasing. Now that producing anything it's becoming more accessible, and then it's just increasing. It could be text, then we'll have image, we are having videos, and so on. I mean, we are going to have very soon entire games, right? You are going to be able to, and it's not that far, to put an image and then you already go with your car and have all physics simulated there. It's not fiction. This is happening right now, right? So where is all this content ending up? Because one question that is in my head is always, is this stuff all going on social media, on website? Is it going on TV? Is it going in video games? Is it going in cinema? And I think right now, it in 6 months might change, in 1 year might change. But as of right now, you are so involved in this community and you know so many artists, where do you see this content ending up besides the social media post that talks about how AI cool is? Because that is another point. There is just, and I think it's great. And I think it's great because it's a great way to attract attention on your work. But when we look about the spotlight on, oh, AI is so cool, look the crazy shit I do, and that is fine, where else this is going for real?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. I think during the, maybe there were a big debate about this during the Oscar, for like a celebration of cinema. And there were like people say like, oh, with AI movie, should we make another new category for AI movie? Because now it's like a new way to create it. So, but what I think is super interesting is now when I work with clients, there is some clients, when we create some stuff, they will say that they use AI. But a lot of clients now, I work for movie, for video game, they don't say they use AI. So now AI is used for some commercial, for some video games, for some part, not fully at all. It's never fully generated yet. But sometimes we don't even know because they will not say, because it's just another tool. So some company use it as like a commercial aspect to say like, oh, we use AI, but some company now, they even like big company, I can't say some names, but they are using it already in their pipeline. For example, I can give you a super clear example. For all the movie, when we see movie with VFX, so they do matte painting for the background, so they create environment using matte painting. And I remember I have a VFX agency that contact me and they say to me like, oh, we would love to use AI, but to do something very like new a bit. They wanted just like for the matte painting, just the border of the matte painting to merge it better with the background, or to have something that is like better texturing it, because sometimes I use matte painting with 3D. And so I create a little flow that finally just this little part, like just try to merge it a bit more automatically without a work that they have to do manually. And it was for a movie, like so, like for some scene of a movie that exists, but they never say that it was AI, because it's a so little part and so combined with everything that start to say. But I want to say for commercial on TV, it's very interesting. I think since 1 week we start to see really full commercial. As there were one commercial for a shampoo, I think that get very famous, like where we saw someone like sliding between the ingredient of the shampoo, and that was made almost fully with AI. So I think now, but we are really now changing with that. So we post a lot of stuff on social media to prove to brand, to prove to agencies that it's possible. And now, since 1, 2 weeks, 1 month, we really see now people using it as real production, I think. And like big company were using already 1 year ago, but now I would say it's almost everyone. And it will be more and more, to be honest. But yeah.
And maybe another point, since we are getting a bit in a minefield, but I think it's also important to touch these topics, is how when you are in this community, of course, a lot of people are in favor of this, right? Because they see that as, oh, it's accelerating my workflow, it's making it easier. But there is also a very big group that is like, oh, yeah, this is another AI-generated crap. It's soulless, right? And they have their own arguments. Why that is based on just stolen art or stolen creation, and again, many valid arguments. So when you end up having this conversation, right? How do you kind of like not let's say fight back or try to deal with these objections, but like how does the conversation evolve?
It's a discussion that we have always with people, and like that's for sure. AI now it's maybe ethically still problematic because we don't know exactly how the model are trained. It can be trained on many different data. But what I like to say is like, yeah, AI, I think people are scared a bit, but it's at the time when internet arrived. I was very young when internet arrived, but I remember that people were so scared that it will steal their job, that it will be something that will replace them at the time already. And I feel with AI now we are a bit scared the same way, and people are really scared of it will replace. But I think what it will be super powerful, and when I see the best workflow of people and the best work I see with AI, it's creative people that use it as a tool to enhance what they already create before. And I think that's super interesting that AI is not like here to replace. It's like when you use ChatGPT. I remember someone said to me, it was a teacher. I say that because I think it was really cool in university. Was saying like, oh, you don't need to learn anything because everything is online. And I said to him, but if you don't know anything, what you will look for online. And it's the same for this model that is either ChatGPT, but also to generate images. More you have knowledge and capacity to create stuff, more maybe AI can help you to go a bit further, and to go faster. But I understand also for sure that now you can create a full image of Mickey Mouse or like any character like in one click, and it will use like the work of someone else. But you can use also like to train, for example, models on your own drawing. I see some people that you can train model, for example, on 15 images that you did, of drawings that you did, and you can recreate drawing from that. So, or for example, you can also just modify in some of your creation. You just want to modify the color of the background, because there is something that you don't like, and so you use AI for that, but you don't replace anything else. So, I think it's really the balance how you use it also.
And look, you don't need to convince me. But all those arguments, that also are very valid. I mean, are those, sure, let's say, and and also again, the point is not trying to convince someone else of something, right? But is that kind of like enough to kind of like cool down a bit the conversation, let people see things from a different perspective? How do they go back? Because these are kind of, this back and forth is kind of like known, right? And I'm not sure that there are, and maybe it's something I should do actually. Maybe we should get a one pro and one against and have a bit of more of a debate around it, because like this is kind of like a one-way conversation, right? And I'm trying to understand how these two elements could find a way that they kind of like join together in a way, right? And or find a middle ground.
No, it's totally what you're saying, and I think we also miss that in the industry right now, and it's what you saw probably online. We see so many technical improvement and some like cool video, but most of the time the scenario or the artistic direction, or you can have some things that you miss because people that use ComfyUI or mostly these AI tools are not really artists, and so we need that. And the best movie, and we were always working with so many artists, to make it like the best looking possible, because AI is not like it's not as good anyway, and it will be maybe one day, but I think the best AI will be always a combination with the work of human. And I just want to say that anyone that is like a bit like against AI, and I totally understand. First, now you have models that are like super ethical, like the model of Adobe that is trained only on their data. But you have also models that are trained on now on public domain content. So you have like a lot of possibilities also to try to use it in an ethical way and to respect the people. And I think like now companies really trying to think also about how to maybe to give back money to these artists that work with that. I know some model, like for example, the Chinese model. I don't want to make generality, but Chinese model have less problem with copyright than USA. So they have more liberty to create model quickly and to share it, because copyright is less a problem than in USA. But yeah, I'm agree with you that also like to make it like more appealing for people and for artists, maybe we should respect a bit artists more a bit. And this company also should try to make their work valuable, to give something back from this, even if it's just credit. Some people, they don't want even money, they want a tiny bit credit, for their work. So I feel maybe all these companies that are probably very big in Gen AI now, they will need to be closer to artists to see what possibilities, because there is possibility and we need both of the world. And now we miss true artists also in AI to make things go faster and better.
And of course, follow Lovis, because a lot of his experiments are absolutely great. So you will find the link below. Lovis, thank you very much for sharing all your expertise.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you very much for listening in. If you like the show, remember to leave a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or a thumbs up on YouTube. It really helps me keep doing this and shine the spotlights on the greatest founders and makers, pushing the boundaries of XR and AI. Also, make sure to check out the show page xraispotlight.com, where you can find more conversation like this one. Till next time.